Hello, everyone. I'm Owen Lansbury, a board member of the Drupal Association, and I'm actually dialing in from Friday morning in Sydney, Australia. I hope you've all had a fantastic DrupalCon, and I'm thrilled to introduce our final main stage speaker, Aisha Brown. She joins us today from San Diego and spent almost 20 years in technical roles with both the US Air Force and the Marine Corps before her current role with Microsoft as a program manager. Today, she will lead us through adapting diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts to the reality of a crisis. Welcome, Aisha.
Hello, thank you. A pleasure to meet you, Owen. Pleasure to be here. So today I'm going to be talking about adapting your DE&I efforts to the reality of crisis. I'm going to start by saying we're all in this together. It doesn't matter what shade, what color, what hue, what you identify as, your pronouns, we are all in this together. With that being said, what is a crisis? Well, a crisis is a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or danger. A time when a difficult decision must be made. Kind of like where we are right now. I picked this animation right there because the guy's in the boat with the paddle and 3 sharks. Where's he going? That is how I feel every single day. This is our reality, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Some places, I just talked to Owen, and Owen said that Australia is doing a lot better with the virus, with maintaining the virus, while I'm here in Southern California, and we've shut down for the second time as of 2 days ago. So this is the reality. There's something outside lurking, and we're just waiting. So how do we respond to COVID? Why does responding to COVID require DE&I? Because more often than not, we're home. We're home, we're alone. And when I say alone, I don't mean with the people in your house, because sometimes the people in your house make you want to be alone. Sometimes you want to get away from them. I want to get away from them. But we're alone together. So even though wherever everyone is dialing in, we're all alone together. So this is like separate togetherness. I kept saying throughout the entire social distancing phase, I don't social distance. I physical distance, but I didn't try to social distance more often than I was before. I tried to be more, I turned my camera on more, I talked to more people, I reached out to more people, because it is very easy to find yourself alone at home, if that makes sense. So I'm going to stay here for a little while and talk through these, but we're in a very interesting place. But it afforded us 2 things. It gave us obstacles and it gave us opportunities. I'm going to talk about the obstacles first, because that's the thing that makes us angry, makes us upset, makes us sad, makes us stressed, gives us anxiety. Those are the things. The remote work. I was very, 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 very fortunate to 6 months prior to the pandemic, I switched teams at Microsoft, and I ended up on a 100% remote team. So coming from a position where I was in the office every day and coming to a remote position, I had my period of adjustment and learning my role and learning my responsibilities and what I needed to do on the fly while I was in that role. And it was easier for me when easier, I say that in air quotes because it wasn't, but I had a rhythm of being at home. But then when the pandemic hit, the obstacle of having my family at home. So my wife moved into my office, so she has a desk and a computer here. My daughter was home from school, which leads me to homeschooling. And I failed as a 5th grade teacher this year. I know I did. I have no problem admitting that. I'm not the only parent that failed as a homeschool teacher. It's hard. It's very hard to be conducting business meetings, meeting deadlines, doing fractions. Oh, my wife wants something, and just trying to, because I'm used to working remotely alone, just having my office space to do my thing and not have anyone but me and the dog just in my space, which led to a boundaries thing. When everyone came online, when all the rest of the industries came online and working from home, I noticed that boundaries started just disappearing, because even though I'd be on my computer at 8 p.m. at night, maybe doing some homework, maybe researching something, cruising, YouTube University to figure out how to create something, people would ping me and ask me work questions. I'd be like, hey, can you take care of this real quick? No. Just, it's 9 o'clock at night. Are you crazy? I don't want to do anything. It became this area where work and life started becoming the same time space, the same thing. I watched as people's mental health started to change. I would notice my colleagues who wouldn't engage, wouldn't talk anymore, wouldn't turn on their cameras. Just, there was a lot going on. There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of questions of why, what do we do now? What's going to happen? Because that fear of the unknown it just sits in your chest and you just wait for things to happen. And if you don't have answers, you're like, you look for that and you grasp at things and you make assumptions. And all of that takes you down this negative spiral. And then cultural competence. What I learned was a lot of people did not realize how a person's culture affected them being at home or affected the way they were doing their job in this new space. So people really had to learn. For instance, I was reading this article and warehouse workers were asked to still come in. Now, if you remember at the beginning of the pandemic and a civil uprising, two different crises, right, going on. And the warehouse workers were asked to come in. Well, a lot of the warehouse workers were predominantly people of color. So at that time, depending on where you are in the world, it was very hard, especially in America. And down here I was up in LA at the time, just working remote. It was hard to be a person of color driving your car somewhere because the police were stopping everyone, pulling them out of cars, which leads down into racial discrimination. So it created an obstacle. And how do you combat that? Because some people have to work to survive. They don't have the option of not going in the office. They don't have the option of, you know what, I'll just take these calls from home. Because if you're a warehouse worker, your job is in the warehouse. So that led to companies really having to learn and adapt to their workers' needs. So they started providing them, documentation saying that this is where they work, these are the hours they'll be traveling. And you would think that you wouldn't need a proverbial hall pass for life, but having that support from your employer actually makes a difference. And in some people's cases, it can save their lives. At a time of crisis, the obstacles became unique, they became stressing, but it gave way to a new light, a new chance, and some really, really good opportunities for good things to happen. And when I say good things happen, it was really a time for knowledge gathering. A lot of people didn't understand the things that their employees were going through because they don't live in that environment. I had a conversation with my skip level manager, and her and I were talking, and I remember her telling me about the riots, and the riots were going on. This is up in Seattle. The riots were going on, and she could hear the riots and they could smell the fire burning. And it was really a very interesting discussion because my wife is from the South, and they do a lot of burning down in the South, but it's usually in a negative way, crosses and KKK, and we're sharing experiences. We're really truly sharing experiences. And she started to learn things about me that I had never been able to really talk to anyone about. So it became an area where I watched my organization do something I've never seen before. They opened the floor for people to share their knowledge. What are you experiencing? And at that knowledge sharing, that knowledge gathering moment, I started learning diversity it's not a black and white thing. It's not a brown and yellow thing. It's not a color thing. It's meeting people where they are. because whatever is different in that time, that's the diversity. Because if I'm in a room with all African American people, okay, you may say there's no diversity, but I might be the only lesbian female who's a veteran with a disability. And that's what makes me diverse. And just everyone gathering these things about each other and learning each other, it really became this powerful momentum, because I always believe that when you take the time to understand people, just hear them out and learn about them, you'll always find common ground somewhere. And then you'll start to find your tribe. And finding your tribe at a time like this is more important than anything else, because that's when you really start to bring people together. And when I say bring people together, same skip level manager I'm having this conversation with, she starts talking to all of us individually on a one-on-one. She starts to figure out we have a lot of things in common, and we're all over the globe. For this team specifically, we're all over America. And we have one guy who is a DJ, and then you have me. I'm a roller skater. You can't see it in the back, but I come to all my team meetings on roller skates. I'm turning, I'm spinning, and I'm just having a good time. We have one lady who's a karaoke singer. She's like a champion karaoke singer. We have all these talents. And by her just listening and learning things about us, she decided that on Fridays, we were going to shut down for a 2-hour block of time. And she was going to invite us all to a team meeting. And here goes all 243 of us on this team meeting. And she was like, hey, I invited you all today. We're going to do something a little different. Listening to all of you, we're going to decompress. So we started playing, we have another PM. He's a DJ, and he hosts online DJing sessions. So we started playing musical bingo. And every week, since March maybe, we've been playing musical bingo with a different theme, because we have movie buffs. So sometimes we have, soundtracks from famous movies, or we'll have 80s Day, 90s Day, 70s Day, alternative rock, just all types of Disney classics, something for everyone. And now I come to bingo. I don't even come to bingo to play bingo. I don't play. I don't download any cards. We have two people that always win. I don't know how they always win, but they always win. But I come just to feel a part of something, because it's a good time. It's that one time where everyone takes off their mask, they set it to the side, and they just enjoy themselves. It is Friday at 12 o'clock. I know, I don't care what someone puts on my calendar, I'm going to bingo, because I know my colleagues are going to be there. And that's the one time, if we don't smile all week, we're going to smile, and we're going to have a really, really good time. And through bingo, I learned so much about people. I mean, there are some people who work faster than Shazam when it comes to identifying music, talking about genres. They'll start to share their experience. Oh, I met this actor. I've learned that I've had colleagues who marched in the civil rights movement. Just, you learn all these things about people that they're openly sharing in a safe space. So you have people coming together, sharing knowledge, and you've created this safe space. And that's really what this is about. It's about creating safe spaces, because when the pandemic kicked off, as we can tell, conferences got canceled. Anything in person got canceled. There was no traveling. There was no coming in the office. So things that people relied on just to get them through the day, it was gone. And for me, I love going down to La Jolla or going up to Irvine, because it means if I went to La Jolla, cool, the beach is right there. I can skate. They have a little helo pad out there. I go skate. Like, I could talk to my colleagues, or I can go up to Irvine. I can go talk to the app dev guys and look at what they're working on, bring my kid, and she learned how to make power apps and stuff. It was just all kinds of good stuff that I could do in the office. And when I lost that, I felt like I lost what it really meant to be like a real Microsoft employee, because I was just home. And then now, as we start to really look at our leadership, leading with empathy and understanding where the people are, what are the things that we need, and just creating safe spaces for us to talk, because it got rough. It got very, very rough for a while. And there was a period where No one knew what to say to the African Americans, to the people of color. I got a lot of random text messages. I see you, I'm with you, I support you. And I wouldn't respond. I got a lot of, I'm here for you, I'm here with you. And I wouldn't respond. But once again, it was, hey, we're going to come together and we're going to talk about race. We're going to talk about systemic racism. I want you to share your experiences and to watch everyone has a story. Everybody has a story. And I don't care what your color is. Everyone has a struggle with diversity. I remember last year in Orlando, I was speaking at a conference, and I remember maybe early 30s, Caucasian male stands up and he puts his hands in his pocket. He goes, I feel like I don't have anything to complain about. And I said, tell me more. He said, well, I don't feel like I have anything to complain about because I'm a white heterosexual male in corporate America. And I paused, you try not to make any snap judgments. I said, so tell me more about it. And he's like, well, I don't have anything to complain about because it could always be worse. I said, what do you mean? He said, I could be, and I just paused. And I like the whole room was waiting. We're all like, he said, I can be other than what I am. I said, so if you take the mask off, who are you? And he kind of looked at me, he stepped back from the microphone, dropped his shoulders, then he walked back to the microphone and he said, I'm a middle-aged white male who suffers from depression. And I said, talk to me. And he said, and I feel like I don't have the right to be depressed because there are people who have it worse than me. He goes, I can walk in any room and be accepted. He goes, I might not have any idea what's going on, but I'll be looked at like I'm in charge. He said, so I know that I could always have it worse. I said, so why are you sharing? And he was very transparent. He said, because it's hard being who he is and pretending to be who he is in order to maintain, I guess, his stature, his status. And there's a lot of people like that. Everybody is dealing with something, and we don't know what that something is. In order to find that something, you have to step back. You have to create a safe space. And I did not know this man from a can of paint, but I know in that moment, during that session, I had people stop, come up to me, come up to the mic, and just give their truth because they felt like they had the safe space to do so. And what I've been seeing now is that even remotely, it's possible. I've seen it done. People want to share their experiences. People want to talk. So how do you create that space? I'm not saying you need to come up with content and have an entire thought out plan. And today we're going to go over this. You don't have to do that. Create a room, create a conference, create a talk. Hey, I'm going to open the floor today to talk about this. If anyone wants to share, the floor is yours. And people who wanted to share and people who wanted to listen came. People who related came. People who wanted to help, who wanted to be that active ally in motion. Because allyship that's motion. That's a whole different rabbit hole we can go down. But all it took was creating that actual space. And for me, that was so important. That's how you lead with empathy. That's how because you don't have to know what they're going through. You just have to listen. And you may not relate, but you might learn something. And then provide resources. You know what? I'm not the expert in this. However, let's go on this journey together and we'll find you some resources. And that's it. Sometimes it's just a matter of, hey, you know what? I haven't dealt with that, but I know someone who has. Do you mind me introducing you to them? Cool. There's a lady on Twitter who I follow who speaks very openly about her anxiety. And as someone who suffers from anxiety, I thought it was taboo because I was coming straight from the military into corporate America. So I was like, you don't want to show any signs of weakness. You don't want to show any signs of issues and for me, when anxiety hits for me, I start painting. So if you see in the back, I start painting. That's mine. And I said that to my manager and I got paint in the mail. And it was like, just in case you're struggling, a little, and I don't even think she realized how much that actually meant to me, was that someone heard me. And she didn't ask me, am I okay? She didn't run me down this rabbit hole or make me feel any type of way. I just openly expressed that when I get stressed, I paint. When I get anxiety, I paint. And usually there's paintings all over my office. To see paint show up at my front door, it was like I cried because I felt like I was hurt. And that's what this is about. It's about giving people the space to be comfortable, to be themselves, and to be heard. And then when it comes to resources are, if you are remote and you don't have resources or you don't know where to find them, a couple of places. You can always ask HR. You can look on the web. You can look at what's free. I know, especially during this pandemic, a lot of mental health resources have been making themselves very available, free at no cost for both employees and their family members, children. You have a question. When having an open forum like that, how can you avoid the space being taken over by white men who take up all the space and leave no room for others? Not to discount the story about the man suffering from depression, but often when we have forums, the entitlement. Absolutely. So, yes. And what I did allow him to do, because the reason why I let that go was before that, there was a lot of other talk, and it was subtle bashing. There is an entitlement that comes, there's a privilege that comes with being white. We know this. It's not unknown. But we also know that there are many people who are aware of their entitlement, who actively try to leverage it in a more conducive way, or they hide who they are, who they truly are. They hide their authentic self because they feel like, I have to be perfect. Nothing can be wrong with me. Like in his case, nothing could be wrong with him because he was a white heterosexual male. However, when it comes to spaces like that, set the expectation, because when we came to our call, it was called out explicitly. This call is for people of color who want to share how they are feeling with what is going on in the world right now. This is for the people who want to be allies to listen, but this is the floor for them. And that is it. Set the expectation. So when you set expectations, then you can tell when someone is trying to just jump in and quote unquote, I'll use your words, show their entitlement. Does that make sense? Because I want to make sure that we set the right expectations. This call is for this. So if I'm allowing a safe space for the people of color to talk, or the women of tech to talk, or parents of children with disabilities to talk, that is the audience who needs to air their grievances and share their stories. It is not your time to talk about dandruff or anything minuscule that has nothing to do with your child with disabilities. And I'm very explicit at calling that out, and very, very explicit about allowing that safe space to be just that, a safe space, because it's not about everything else going on in the world. We can talk about apples and oranges all day, but today the topic is grapes, and that's it. So hopefully that explained it. I can't see the response, but hopefully that explained it. When you create safe spaces, you have to set boundaries. You have to set expectations. You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions? I'll answer some questions. How do you feel? I mean, I'm always open to listen and gain knowledge from the people that I talk to. How do you create safe spaces? How do you want a safe space to be created for you? Because right now this generation is in uncharted waters. I don't think I have the right to feel that way. It describes exactly where I've been. You know what, Mike? I'm going to say this. I'm going to go back to the very first thing that I said. We're all in this together. You have the right to feel. You have to. And if you feel, the fact that you can even feel, you're leading with empathy. You can't say that you don't have the right to feel. You have the right to feel. It doesn't matter if you're wealthy, white, heterosexual male, you just at the top of your game, at the top of your life. You have the right to feel, because knowing all that you know, knowing your privilege, knowing that you and your family is okay, that means you have the opportunity to make it better for somebody else. Because every time, if you're already up there, that means you can reach back down and bring somebody up. And that's what I mean by bringing people together and bringing people along. You have to be able to bring people along. Because if you and I were having a one-on-one conversation and you say, I don't think I have the right to feel that way, my very first question is, well, why? Just because it doesn't affect you does not mean it does not affect you. Because it affects everyone else around you. And if you're empathetic, then you're gonna feel what they feel. Even if you cannot relate, you look at the toll that it takes on the people around you. You look at the toll that it takes on, your kids and their friends, because you'll hear that stuff, your colleagues and their families. When you mentioned getting the paint in the mail, you said no one asked you how you were doing. They just heard what you like. Would you have wanted that person to ask you how you were doing? No. Because, and this is why I say no for me, I am not the person you have to ask, how am I doing? Because I'm very good at being authentically me, and the people who work with me know that. So if I feel a certain way, I say it. And we had already had a conversation, and she asked me, how are you? And I said, we're exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm mentally drained. I can't do this right now. I said, I don't have the capacity to do the things that are being asked of me, but I'm trying. And then my schedule got cleared. It was clear. We got our schedules cleared, and we took a day off as an org, and we did some reflecting, some reading. But for my colleagues though, I do ask, I check in regularly. And at the beginning of my team meetings with my direct manager, there's like 6 or 7 of us. And the first thing she goes, hey, this is a check-in, mask off. How are you all doing? And she asks us, how are we all doing? And if we want to share, we share. And if we don't want to share, just stay on mute. And that's okay, because you meet people where they are. And for me, I meet everyone where they are. And if you want to come along, I'm going to walk with you. And I'm okay with that. So, but she knows that I was very vocal about when you start seeing paintings, my anxiety's up, because that means something's going on with me. And as more and more paintings went up, paint just started showing up. And I thought that was cool, because even without me saying anything directly, people were attentive to the things that were going on around me, and they knew me well enough to know that something was going on, and I can appreciate that. But it's nice to make your colleagues feel seen. Hard to be a default answer. Oh, you're the opposite. I have a lot of friends like that. I have a lot of colleagues like that who will be on a call, and everyone will go, hey, how are you doing? And you see the comments, hey, I'm fine. I'm good. And one of my colleagues, she put, I'm good. And I back channeled her and I said, no, you're not. What's going on? And I just waited for the response, because everyone's carrying something. Everybody's carrying a bag, whether it's a book bag, grocery bags. Some people got luggage. Some people have a U-Haul hooked up to the back of their soul. Everybody has a bag, and you can either add to that bag or you can help them carry it. You can help them unpack. So I like to be the person to help unpack. I always tell my colleagues, I'm a great ventor. You want to vent? I'll listen. I'll listen all day. And I don't try to solve problems. I'll listen. I'll make suggestions if you ask. But I like to lead people to work out their own scenarios. So I'll ask questions in a very leading manner, like, really? Okay. But if you tell me you're good and your body language tells me you're bad, or you're not good, or you're sad, or you're depressed, or you're not smiling, or you're not doing the things that I know that I've seen you do when you're being your authentic self, because people let their guard down from time to time and you get glimpses of who they are. And some people don't. It's always, I'm good. Because if I say I'm good, you know I'm lying. That's not my vernacular. No. But it's how else can we start to bridge that gap if we don't take the opportunity to learn people? And sometimes you just have to pause, and because I can get stuck just all day, mouse click. I can get stuck in the matrix all day, and I know I'm good for that. But if I go down, how does that affect, how does it affect my family? Because if I don't do anything else for anybody else, I have this amazing 11-year-old that looks at me every day, and I don't know, she thinks I'm cool, she thinks I'm great. I don't want to let her down. So I have to do the things and take the steps to make sure I'm okay, whether that's talking to someone, talking to a psychiatrist, I don't care if I'm watching Sesame Street and Elmo all day, whatever will put a smile on my face to keep me from going into a dark place, that's what I'm going to do. And that works for some people. It doesn't work for other people. Some people, whether it's they need to be medicated or they just need certain things. No one should look down on somebody for what they need to require to be themselves. And whatever that part of yourself is, some people are just introverts. Some people are stone cold introverts. And then you have to allow them to be introverts, because someone in America, Elijah McCain, was killed for being an introvert because he didn't know how to socially. He said, I'm just socially awkward. I'm sorry, I wouldn't kill a fly. And he was murdered. So you have to meet people where they are. I'm afraid this openness might go away when the crisis stops. What do you think will happen in our culture as this continues and then goes away? I don't think the openness will go away. I think what I love about this generation, this going on right now, if you are under the age of 50, I'll say, we are in a very unique place in time, because the 60s and above, they knew what segregation was. They lived through it. They saw it in action, and they taught their children. So you still have that underlying racism, that trauma and treatment, the people who knew what it was like to treat people less than, and then the people who were treated less than, and they taught their children who are now their grandchildren, who are now in their 30s, 40-ish range. So we don't limit technology. We don't have a limit for information. We know better, so we can do better. And now it's our job in this dynamic we have a whole younger generation who can miss all of this if we start to write it now. So the responsibility is really on us to just keep making those steps every day. It's not a fad. I don't think it's a fad. I think we are in a place where people are tired of being mistreated. People want to see equality. People want to see better. Because at the end of the day, we share this place. Earth is Earth. We share this space. So how can we share it in the most conducive way to all of us? And hurting and killing and doing all this extra stuff, it's not going to make it any better for the generations we leave behind. And we want better for our kids. We want better for ourselves. So I think once this crisis goes away, I think it opened up a new avenue for people to really be able to have these types of conversations. Because when I was in the military, I used to say, if you've ever served in the military, it doesn't matter what military you anywhere in the world, if you've served in the military, nothing brings people together like misery. Because at any point in time, at some point in the military while you're serving, you have this miserable point. It's just miserable, but you're all a family. And even in the midst of all of this, you get to see the goodness come out of people. You see communities coming together. I have a young lady who I actually put in the Marine Corps many years ago. She's in New York City, and they're going around abandoning refrigerators in neighborhoods, just creating community fridges just for people who can't afford food to come in, take what they need, and leave what they don't, just to build that sense of community. And I think that is beautiful. So I think this forced us into a place where we put a little bit of human inside of humanity. And I think it'll keep going. I'm hopeful that it'll keep going because we don't have any reason to go backwards. I hope that answered your question. Yeah, I hope it doesn't go back because I like where we're going. I definitely like the direction in which we're going. So I say that to say it doesn't matter who, what you look like, whether you're old, young, curly, straight hair, whether you're blonde, brunette, you're bald, you wear glasses, if you got pigtails, if you got a buzz cut, if you got a jerry curl, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. At the end of the day, we are all in this together. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed speaking to you all. If there's any questions, I will be here to answer. But we are all in this together. You have more hope now than a year ago. Me too.
Thank you, Aisha, for this conversation and these resources. There's a lot of people who've been reacting to share their feelings, saying that they appreciate this compassion, that this idea of having a mask off, and not just a COVID mask, but the mask they've been wearing all the time, and sharing your own resources with each other as we go, and for asking those questions, for those of you who shared and were vulnerable and willing to ask those hard questions. That's really, really wonderful. The conference is going to be wrapping up pretty soon, so it's been a great 3 days. Regular session content continues, though this is the last of our main stage content, and we're looking forward to having a great time with you all as we finish things out. Thank you again, Aisha.
All right. Bye, Tim. Bye, everyone.